Good evening and good to have you with us at the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, one more time, let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about our friends, our family members, and the impact that this pandemic, that this lockdown could be having on them. Emotionally speaking, mentally speaking, it's not easy at all. And now that we are staring at an extended lockdown, looking at lockdown 2.0, May 3rd may just seem like a date, but for many people, it seems far, far away. And how do you get there? There's a lot of stress of being constantly indoors. There's a lot of stress about on your interpersonal relationships with those that you are around with. You're not used to spending 24 hours with them, but now you are doing that. There's a lot of stress about your own professional future. Will your business be there? Will your job be there? Are you going to face a salary cut? How will you manage your finances? Are you already running short on money? How do you deal with that? You cannot get out. You cannot meet people. You're finding new ways to sustain yourself, your family, and your businesses. These are tough times. There is no denying that fact. Which is why it's extremely important that in such times, we also put a little bit of focus on our mental strength and our mental health. Now, there are multiple aspects to this. One is, of course, for people who are already seeking professional help or who had an existing issue. And this just becomes a bigger challenge for them. The second is, of course, the newer cases that may be emerging. What do you do? How do you deal with it? Fret not. We've got our experts joining us this evening. We're doing these conversations regularly. If you have a specific question, if you want to share with us, write to us, tweet to us, and we will get your point across to the experts. Let's say good evening to our panelists, and I'm very glad to have them. Usha Krishnamurthy, counselor with Apollo Shine, Dr. Shyam Bhatt, psychiatrist and physician, Dr. Anita Sukhwani, consultant psychiatrist, also a member of a COVID helpline team in Mumbai, Dr. Harish Shetty, always a pleasure to have him, social psychiatrist with the Hiranandani Hospital. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Sukhwani, let's begin with you. You are also a member of a COVID helpline. What's been the kind of response that you've received there, the kind of help that people are seeking right now?
So we've had a lot of calls. One had a lot of fears about getting the disease and how to protect themselves. Lockdown 2 has been completely a different phenomenon. There's more fear of losing jobs. Domestic violence we have seen increasing. People staying away from their near and dear ones are unable to handle their life. Their fears and worries about people living away from them have increased. So these are the things that we have noticed. And of course, the economic problems.
Okay, Dr. Harish Shetty, let me also bring you in on this conversation. The biggest problems that we are witnessing, which people are coming out with, and I just want to first begin by highlighting these so that the viewers who are watching us understand that if they are going through some of this, they're not alone in it.
Absolutely. I think let us accept that few months ago, we had a global burden of disease figures which said that 1 out of 7 Indians are mentally ill. On that context, we had corona. So the commonest issues is a 17-year-old boy who said and believed that he would die of corona because he saw a lot of WhatsApp messages. First time, de novo, no history of mental illness, no family history of mental illness, no substance at all. Then we had 2 women who said, elderly, they said there's no point in living and there's no point in dying of corona, let's die much before. Then the third is, we had also anger and irritability at home because people were ready for the first lockdown. For the second lockdown, they have not mentally prepared themselves. What is very important for us to understand is there are 4 things you need to do and you need to believe. If your outcome is good, your faith in those 4 things will improve. And what are the 4 things? Sanyam, Sankalp, sanitizer, and soap. And when they believe on these 4 things, they understand that there is something which they need to do, that they need to wait. And at that point of time, what happens is the first 15 days was a honeymoon. Everything was nice, everything was good. and people were bonding. But in the next 15 days, they're worried about what is going to happen when they go back. Will the jobs be there? There's a lot of anxiety about jobs. They're anxious about people who actually sneeze, who actually cough. In every disaster, in the post-impact phase, you get a startle reaction. In an earthquake, when there's noise, they believe there's an earthquake. Again coming back. In corona, if there's a cough, if there's a sneezing, if there's fever, and if there's anything going wrong in the nose, and people would get very scared, people would move away from those people, and that has already begun in communities, in mohallas, in villages, as well as in housing complexes. So there are signs that there would be anxiety, phobia, there would be depression, and there would also be anger and irritability. And the 4 ways how to deal with the same are: continue doing your exercise. Exercise dissolves fears, tears, anger, and shame. Second thing is, you have learned yoga. I'm not saying this. Harvard School says that you need to do yoga to beat corona. Yoga calms down the sympathetic nervous system, brings the autonomic nervous system down, and makes it healthy, and also sees to it that the mind and the body are in complete alignment, or as much as it can. But if you do not do any form of meditation and exercise, it will be very difficult for you to cope with the disease. Also, earlier it was a very altruistic, utopian activities which happened in the first lockdown. In the second lockdown, you're facing reality. Jobs will go down, salaries will be cut, cost of living will increase. Remember one thing, Alcoholics Anonymous has an adage: one day at a time. Let us build our resilience for one day, and also build our resilience for 1 week at a time. Let's plan activities for 1 week. And remember, in this phase, if you preserve your brain and your mind and body, you will be able to come up with creative opportunities in the future. Your visiting card will have your name, but addresses may keep on changing. You will not lose hope, you will not lose faith. I think keeping your faith and hope alive is the most important thing in this phase.
Okay, let me also bring in our other two panelists, Dr. Shyam Bhatt, also joining us right now. Dr. Shyam Bhatt, let's begin by first saying what are the kind of issues that people can face when they're locked in, away from family, economic stress. But what can that lead to? How do we identify if it's beginning to badly impact somebody with their mental health?
We have data from previous epidemics like Ebola, and we know that depression, anxiety, addictions, and relationship issues are the biggest problems that we see after epidemics like this, especially when there's lockdown. So the key thing is to recognize when something needs professional attention, because stress, if not taken care of, can easily become clinical depression. And so people need to keep an eye on some of the cardinal symptoms. For example, decreased interest or pleasure in doing things that you used to previously enjoy doing, feeling really sad all the time, a lot of anger, a lot of irritability, a lot of anxiety. So if stress rises to that level, it's really important to seek professional help. But of course, there are things that we can do to prevent it, and we absolutely, both as individuals and as a community, have to start taking steps to prevent the pandemic of mental illness that's going to happen after this pandemic if we are not careful. And so I think having a strong community support is very important. A country like ours, we don't have enough therapists or psychiatrists. We have 8,000 psychiatrists, 8,000 psychologists. We just do not have enough personnel. But data tells us if we can create community support groups where people are trained to listen. So we have something called psychological first aid, which has been shown to be very useful. And essentially, psychological first aid involves listening with empathy to somebody, understanding their needs, understanding their emotions, giving them a space to talk, and showing some compassion and empathy. So we can train people. They can be supervised by a mental health professional. We can have, and we should have, community support. We need all of this. And people have to really engage with each other as much as possible virtually during a time like this. Otherwise, isolation is very stressful for human beings. We are a social animal. So prevention is very key, Tanvi.
Yes, absolutely. Usha Krishnamurthy, we are also living in an age of digital media, internet and social media connections. Is there a way that all of this can be used, since we are physically separated from everybody else? Can this actually be used in a way that you still feel that you're part of a community or a group?
I think at the very outset, we have to agree that the situation that we're going through is a threat. And we have been, it's been a fight or fight response that we've all been displaying. And it is okay that we are not able to sustain, when it started initially, all of us were pumped up and we were all set to deal with the lockdown. And since it has continued, it's been harder to kind of sustain that, and that's okay. I somehow believe that it's almost like, when you're running a marathon and there is a second wind that happens when, you feel that you're completely run out of energy. And then there is that wind, that burst of energy that comes. I think we all need to understand that this is like that. This second phase of the lockdown is like that we can do it. All we need to do is to continue to do whatever works. Each of us have different things that are helping us to get through this situation, whether it is following our passion or suddenly discovering that we are fantastic bakers or that we are, not just bathroom singers, but we actually have a great voice. So anything that works for us, to continue to do more of that. As far as digital media is concerned, I think it's very important while we are forwarding all these, WhatsApp forwards and all that, maybe it would be good to share information which also gives us hope. And it also, I think it would be very good for us to diffuse our tensions by probably working on community building, or as Dr. Harish has said, Dr. Sham has said, it's about community support. It's about understanding what can we do, whether it is passing information about helplines for, elderly people, or whether it is domestic abuse helplines, whatever it is, to pass information so that people are more empowered at a time like this.
Okay, so let's take it, one by one and focus on specific things. Like we've said, that this kind of a lockdown can lead to anxiety, frustration, can lead to panic attacks or loss or sudden increase of appetite, insomnia, depression, mood swings, of course, a lot of fear and stress, and in some cases even suicidal tendencies. What are the few basic things for the uninitiated? What are the few basic things, Dr. Shetty, that you would suggest that we do, that we imbibe in ourselves to perhaps try and not reach this stage?
I think let us understand that we should not play with our biological clock. You may love watching movies, but see to it that you sleep on time and don't disturb your biological clock. Sleep is not about arithmetic, it's about the architecture. It's not about 4 hours in the afternoon and 4 hours at night. It's about 7 to 8 hours continuous. Children would need a little more sleep, deep sleep and dream sleep. So let's not disturb our sleep architecture. That's number one. Number two, when you're at home, don't keep munching. Many of them who have diabetes and hypertension should see that they control their diet, regulate their medications, and share their feelings with the family. Remember one thing, when you have little time, you share thoughts. Let's go to the market, we'll buy a fridge, renew the FD, pay the electric bill. But when you have time, build your life by sharing small stories of your childhood. Pick up a birthday picture of your child or a marriage album, the marriage is going well, and relive beautiful moments in your life. But at the same time, I would say, let's not live in utopia, let's live in reality. Around that, please also plan short term. What are you going to do in the next 1 week, in the next 2 weeks? If it is about children, see to it that they enjoy the retreat, the break, so that they can excel later. Don't push a lot of books and online classes on children. I have known parents who have not finished, who have children who have not finished the 10th standard. I put their children in the 11th standard classes. Don't do this at all. Don't push the children to excel. Push the children to engage and enjoy so that they'll excel in the future. I think that is extremely important. The last thing is family together, as Dr. Bhatt also said and Ms. Krishnamurthy also said. Coming together, connect but don't over-connect, which means you connect with the family, but see to it that you connect with a safe space, your bum chum friend, where you can be emotionally nude. You are connected with the family in the inner circle, yes, but at the same time connect with the other concentric circle around you, that is your safety net, where you can be what you are. So that, I think, is very important.
Okay, so one aspect, of course, is still connecting with the community, connecting with their family members, interacting more, talking, and whichever way, opening up more. The other is also seeking professional help. Dr. Sukhwani, if somebody needs to seek professional help, you obviously can't walk up to any center right now. What are the options which are available?
So luckily right now, it has become legal for teleconsultation and even teleprescription. We have helplines, and patients have been calling out and asking for help. Our old patients, new patients, they are seeking out, and we are able to help them at this time. So thankfully, the government has cleared it, the Medical Council of India has cleared it, and teleconsultation has become legal at this important time. And that is how we are able to reach out to our patients.
Okay, so let's talk about these helplines which are available, Dr. Sukhwani, and are each of the cities having multiple of these helplines? Is there a state sponsored helpline, or do private institutions also have it? How do I go about finding somebody who could help us?
So we have been putting it up and sending out all these helplines through social media to our personal contacts. And luckily, we have been getting a lot of calls. I get regularly 5 to 8 messages from people reaching out for help, for mental health, for helping them. A lot of people who are reaching out when they are lonely. The elderly are stuck and they are lonely with their children away. And they are reaching out and asking us how to handle their life. And like Dr. Harish Shetty said, the biggest thing that they need to understand is establish a routine, reach out to people, take out your old books, read them, take out your board games and read them, and connect. So loneliness is a big part, but we have been getting people and we are able to help them. So we're very thankful for these helplines. Not only in Mumbai, I've been getting calls from Srinagar, from Jammu, from Mizoram, from Kerala. So they are able to reach out to us and we are able to help them.
And you know what's interesting that you also highlighted earlier in your first answer, and in fact we've been trying to put together data to see if there can be a larger conversation. Usha Krishnamurthy, this is unfortunately also leading to a rise in domestic violence cases. Now, many say that perhaps there are higher cases, but people are not even able to call because, well, where do they get the opportunity to even make that SOS phone call? Their abuser is home 24/7, and in other cases there is no way. Obviously there is no way to get out of that situation.
I think this is the biggest worry as far as this lockdown is concerned would be for people with existing mental health conditions. The first thing they should do is they should continue to reconnect with their, connect with their doctors and their therapists to keep the therapy going. And as far as abuse, those who are undergoing domestic violence, this is a very, very difficult time because there are many who probably don't have access to a phone, or they are, in a situation where they cannot seek help. I think it's very important for them to not hide the abuse, to ask for help. This is also a time when there is a lot of child abuse, and children can be really the victims of this situation. Maybe when you keep talking about community, I think neighbors, people who know about, situations in homes, maybe if they could pitch in, be a little proactive, do a little check-in, the most important thing is to not hide the abuse at a time like this, to seek help. There are helpline numbers. There's 181 for women. There is 112, which is our national helpline number. And there is an amazing response that is happening. The police, you can call the police because they are so proactive. They are here to protect us. I think it is about asking for help, at a time like this. And I think my heart also goes out for children with special needs, because the parents of these children are probably going through a really difficult time trying to engage and keep the morale of these children. So it is to try and access online resources to get whatever help they can, from the experts, from people they know, to reach out to people in similar situations, so that, there is connect is important at a time like this, to not let go. When you're feeling isolated, reach out. And that's the only way you're going to feel secure and safe again.
Okay, Dr. Bhatt, would you want to come in on this angle as well?
Well, I think the key thing, actually, one of the key things, I'll just comment on family dynamics and relationships at home in general. We are our worst when we are stressed, basically. And when people are stressed, they get irritable, they get angry, or they get withdrawn. Communication isn't very good. They're not as patient with each other. And so a very key thing is for everybody to be aware of any stress that they're going through, and to actually take care of the stress, and also to know how they manage their stress. What is their go-to strategy? For example, there's a couple, let's say, the one person she handles her stress by trying to talk to her husband about it. He handles his stress by trying to get out of the situation and get into video games or books or movies and withdrawing, basically. So you can easily see how that dynamic might become very difficult in that situation where one person wants to reach out, the other person is withdrawing, and both of them are doing that because of stress. So the key message is that stress causes bad behavior, stress reduces empathy, and we need to manage our stress through many of the strategies that we've already talked about. I don't know if you allow me, I want to talk a little bit about the degree of pressure I feel people are putting on themselves these days. I just saw on the graphic that think positive, and of course we should think positive, but at the same time we shouldn't resist, say, a feeling of sadness, a feeling of anxiety. A lot of people manage those feelings by trying to block those feelings, or even feeling bad that they're feeling that way. We have to remember, when you keep messaging think positive, there are people, and I see them, and Dr. Shetty and other people, I'm sure, seeing them in the practice, that they're going through something for no fault of their own. Now, when you message to them that you have to think positive, this person often feels bad that they're thinking negative. So we have to have a better relationship with our feelings. We have to be kinder to ourselves during this time. A lot of people are stressing out. They're saying, look, I can't get all my housework done. I can't take care of my kids, and I'm not doing justice to my work. And they're feeling guilty, and they're feeling really bad. And I want to tell them, listen, this is a hard time for everybody. It's okay to not be perfect. That's true at any time in our life, actually. It's okay not to be perfect. But certainly during this time, cut yourself some slack. Be kind to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself, because understand that you're doing your best, And that kind of attitude of compassion for ourselves and for others is actually profoundly healing. And that's really what I would recommend for people going through stress.
Okay, I just want to go back to what you were saying in the initial part of your comment about interpersonal relationships and two people being there who may be handling the stress differently. While one wants to reach out, the other wants to, completely go into a shell. How do you resolve such an issue then?
Well, in that particular issue, by the way, there are many patterns like that. And I'll give you a few more patterns that happen when people get stressed. Some people, and every family has a mix of this. So the first thing is to understand everyone's sort of way of handling stress. So I mentioned withdrawal. I mentioned seeking out support. Then there are people who start blaming and criticizing when under stress. So maybe there's a member in the family who seems to find fault a lot. That's also a way of handling stress. Some other people just act like it's not a big deal at all. And although they seem like it's not a big deal, inside they're feeling stress. So in any of these situations, understand firstly what you shouldn't do. In the situation I talked about, if the person who wants more closeness keeps asking for more closeness and keeps sort of criticizing the other for withdrawing, the other person actually withdraws more. And the more they withdraw, the more this person comes closer. And before you know it, there's a lot of tension. So what they need to do is first individually de-stress and actually put a little less pressure on each other. Obviously, we want to reach out to our partners and our family, but we have to divide our emotional needs should be met from other people as well. And that's where our friends come in. That's where cultivating a hobby comes in. That's where meditation comes in. But don't worsen the situation by going on trying to get what is not happening. If you find that you're in a relationship where there's a block, for example, what I talked about, the first thing you do is recognize that you yourself are stressed. So instead of blaming your partner, you yourself take care of your. By the way, I'm not talking about abuse at all. Let me be very clear. That's a whole different situation. I'm talking about normal day-to-day relationship stress that people face, right? So there you know that you care for each other, but you also know that we're going through a hard time and we're not our best right now. So let me first take care of me. Once you take care of you, you're more able to give the other. Once you're more able to give the other, that person's stress comes down and it becomes a virtuous cycle. Right? So we got to break the patterns, and often what happens, once you get caught in this pattern, you keep doing more and more of the same, and that doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just want to pick up on a couple of situations and ask the experts on how to deal if somebody is in that kind of situation. Dr. Harish Shetty, for example, there are many people today who are either in the healthcare sector or in law and order sector, even in media, who are currently separated from their families. In many cases, especially for doctors and nurses who are away from their families, living in a separate location altogether, they're away from their children. And we have so many of these instances coming where 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and even older children are struggling with the absence of their parents around. And they obviously also don't have the time or the luxury to even interact with them too much. How does the other parent deal with the children? What do you tell them? How do you make them explain this situation and ensure that it doesn't impact them too much?
Nurses are also talked by our psychiatrists. So debriefing inside the hospital where it's a pseudo family, it's a support group for themselves. As they go home, what is very important is that spend time with the family over Skype, over phone, etc.
Family over Skype, over phone, etc. And listen to the other spouse. Acknowledge the health worker who's doing a lot of good work. At the same time, health worker acknowledges the spouse who's taking care of the children. A lot of appreciation and acknowledgement of each other's roles are very important. If one believes that he or she is a martyr and he or she is doing more than what the others do, then there's a problem. That is number one. Number two, which is very important, is that it is the intensity of emotional contact which is more important than the amount of contact. So when you go back to your house, or when you go back to your home alone, when you're staying away from your children, even if there's an intense contact for a few minutes about feelings, how was the day today? How was your day? And when I'll tell you what, stories have a very powerful mechanism of connecting. Stories where there are feelings expressed. As Sham said beautifully, that accept your feelings exactly as they are. Being positive is not being a chest-thumping attitude, a rara attitude. Within the frame of a positive mind are thoughts which are normal, they're negative, they're fearful. In fact, there was a girl, a 7-year-old girl who said, "Mama, I think I will die." She said that on a video call to a nurse who was working in a hospital, and that nurse went very berserk. The point was that girl was just expressing one part of her anxiety. She did not believe it. So expression of such feelings occasionally by family members should be respected, accepted and acknowledged. Along with that, what is very important is see that your diet, your sleep and your exercise continues. And the fourth thing is you cannot be perfect. Imperfections are part of life. And what is very important, as Sham also said, is that accept imperfections. Don't keep your house in a display mode. Let the house be in a living mode. Let the kids have a little more freedom and latitude to enjoy, to run around, to jump, to be on your lap, or on the phone, on the video phone. Both are having food at the same time. You can share the food what you're eating, and at the same time you can also express a feeling that I miss you. But when you say I miss you, there is bonding. But if you excessively long for the person across who cannot meet you, there'll be difficulties. Having said that, there will be difficult times where you will cry in a way. It's perfectly normal. At some points of time, you'll be helpless. If you're a nurse, talk to your matron. If you're a doctor, talk to your chief or your colleague. And the point is, you will not be a Superman or a Superwoman in this Corona war. You will be a normal human being who goes through ups and downs, who goes through feelings, and manage to work through that with friends, support of seniors, support of families. No family member should behave like a martyr inside the family, and that I think is very, very important.
Okay, I have Dr. KP Sangvi on the phone line calling us from Mumbai, also wants to participate in this conversation. Good evening, Dr. Sangvi. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. Tanvi, few points I wanted to make. One is that the Supreme Court had ruled that telephonic consultation tantamounts to medical negligence, A. B, though the government has said that we are allowed to do telephonic consultation, the government has not, neither has the government passed a law nor there is an ordinance. So tomorrow, if there is a medical legal suit, we are in trouble. Thirdly, today only I have received a guideline from IMA, Indian Medical Association, that we should not be doing telephonic consultation. So it's easy for psychiatrists to do telephonic consultation because they don't do a physical examination of the patient. But where physical examination is required, and we do a misdiagnosis or do a wrong treatment, we are asking for trouble, even if it is COVID.
Okay, right. So, but you are referring to physical health issues or mental health?
Physical health. Or any consultation as such.
Okay.
Because Supreme Court has said no telephonic consultation. It tantamounts to medical negligence.
Okay. So there's you're saying that there is a bit of a confusion and lack of clarity on that front. Dr. Sukhwani, would you want to come in here? Is it allowed, not allowed? Is there some kind of a conflict between various orders and laws?
No, so when it comes to telephonic mental health counseling, there have been certain rules put down. So we try and stick to those rules and try and mainly stick to de-stressing and stick to our older patients. When we come to newer patients, we are trying to mainly, like Dr. Shetty said and Dr. Bhatt said, we talk about getting into de-stressing, following normal routines, and reaching out for help. That is the most important thing to understand. And the helplines are here for guiding them through this crisis, supporting them.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. There was another specific question that I had, which I wanted to take across to our experts, and Dr. Shyam, but maybe you can come in on this. For people who are extremely used to an outdoor life, who are extremely used to a 12-hour non-stop job on the move, and then socializing or doing a lot of physical activity, does it help impact their mental peace as well when they are having to be constrained for 5 straight weeks within these 4 walls? And what do they do?
Absolutely. I mean, the definition of stress is a change in your life that you don't want and that you can't control. So any change in your life which you don't want, especially which you don't want. By the way, any change in your life causes stress in the brain, but certainly a change you don't want. And so particularly a person who's used to exercising, going outdoors, being in the lockdown situation will likely worsen their anxiety and their stress. And the key, usually a lot of people like that, they expend their kind of psychological energy often through a lot of exercise. It's not unusual, for example, for a person to have pre-existing anxiety and sort of channeling that anxiety into exercise and not really knowing that they have that kind of anxiety within them until you're in a situation where you can't run as much as you used to. the main thing is to channel that energy into something constructive. If you're used to exercise, you can replicate exercise, obviously indoors, in your balcony, terrace, etc. To try new exercise forms that can get you aerobic, the same kind of aerobic effect. Your cardiovascular, your heart rate goes up the same amount. You can substitute that. And any excess psychological energy, because that's my point, that not all of this energy is actually just physical energy. It often is psychological energy. And that can be channeled into something different and something constructive. There's no doubt that a new situation asks us to change, right? When a situation changes, and I think you will hear this amongst all of us, like Dr. Shetty was saying earlier as well, you've got to adapt. If your situation is such that you can't do your house perfectly, you've got to adapt. You might be a neat freak, like you might want your house to be in perfect order, but today in a situation like this, you might not be able to do that. You have to adapt. You might be a sports person, now you have to adapt. And adaptation is the imperative of evolution, actually, isn't it? We have to adapt to survive. That has always been sort of the evolutionary imperative, and that's again what's happening to us. So you adapt by channeling that energy into maybe a new hobby, a new skill, into so many other things that you can try to channel that energy to. But the bottom line is you have to look at what is happening. You have to accept that which you cannot change and adapt to the situation, knowing that this will go on for a while, but it will eventually pass. And how we come through this time, how we use our energies, will determine what we get out of this whole challenging time. So the key thing is adapt, change in a healthy way, and that way you get something positive out of this.
Okay, all right. I have one more viewer on the phone line. Doesn't want to divulge the identity, but good evening. Go ahead, please. What would you like to ask? Do we have the caller on the phone line? Yes, hi. Go ahead, please.
Hi. So I just wanted to check that anxiety and overthinking can hardly be kept under check, from job loss to the fear of getting infected. It's always on our mind. Like, what can we do about it?
Well,
okay, thank you for calling. Let's Usha Krishnamurthy, would you like to answer that?
Yeah.
How do you keep it in check? Yeah.
The person who comes to mind is Viktor Frankl, who said, everything can be taken from us, from a man, but the one thing you cannot take is the attitude with which we're going to go about, our life. I think it's about changing the narrative. I think we have the choice. We decide how we are going to write this story. One of the things he speaks about is about how we give meaning to this, period of our life that we are going through. He speaks about love, he speaks about kindness, about humor, and about the meaning. So I think it's a choice that we have here as to what meaning we are going to give to this time that we are spending. We have to understand that we are living in better times where medical technology is fantastic. We are not, we have a lot of access to information. We are in much better times than before. So it's about making the choice to unhook ourselves from those feelings which, create anxiety, giving room for that anxiety, of course, to acknowledge that we are feeling, disturbed by what's happening around us. But I think it is our choice how we decide to give meaning. So it's about finding that purpose, finding what is it that makes sense to us in all this. So I think the one thing that we should not be allowing this situation that's overwhelming to take from us is our attitude.
Can I respond to that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Well, the caller, you mentioned that you've been overthinking a lot, and overthinking, we call it rumination, which is the same kinds of thoughts going round and round in your mind. And the reason you're overthinking is because the brain and the mind hates uncertainty. And when you have uncertainty about the future, the mind goes into the future and starts doing what we call catastrophic thinking, and you start thinking of worst case scenarios, or you're trying to control what you can't control, and so your mind is going round and round. So a key strategy to deal with overthinking is meditation. Meditation, mindfulness, bringing your mind and attention to the present moment, to your breath, to the sensations, is very important during this time, because if we don't discipline our mind, and meditation is a great way to get some mastery over the mind, then the mind goes all over the place causing tension because it's trying to solve a problem that you don't have enough information about. So the key thing I would really recommend, for you and basically for anyone going through any kind of stress, this is a good time to start meditation and yoga, actually, both of which will settle the mind and reduce overthinking.
Okay, thank you so much, for responding to that. Perhaps meditation is one way, because if your mind's running constantly, and that I think happens to a lot of people, and you keep ruminating on the same thing again and again, it is going to then have a larger impact. So find ways to calm your mind down and calm yourself down, and perhaps that would be helpful. Let me see if we can go across to some more viewers on the phone line. We have been getting quite a few phone calls. Shikha is on the phone line calling us from Bengaluru. Good evening. What would you like to share?
Yeah, hi. So I'm already a depression patient with a lot of anxiety. So initially it was all working fine, and I was keeping myself superbly busy and etc. Also doing well on medicine. But recently what has happened, my depression has just increased, and unfortunately there is no help because psychiatrists, they are not available on video call as per doctors, as per hospitals' policies in Bangalore. And I don't have vehicle pass, so I can't go out and see a psychiatrist. And I tried to consult psychologists, but that was not of much use. And also they are charging much more than usual hospital fee because those are conducting their own private sessions. So, there are a lot of anxieties apart from corona. I mean, of course, there cannot be a defined corona anxiety specific. Like I have anxiety about my daughter's future 12th grade, which has been postponed, and what will be her future and her admission in foreign universities, etc. Also, I get very depressed seeing the images of people, having shelter under Yamuna River near Delhi. And then I feel like, how can we just have a luxury life even inside our home? I have a luxury life in my home. So I'm fine being quarantined, and a person can say that you have nothing to be worried about. You have no reason to be depressed about because you have everything in your home. But what about those people? So, those things also give me anxiety. It keeps me awake till 4, 5, even after taking medicines. Like psychiatrists are there on panel, so they know, even on taking sleeping tablets, anti-anxiety, I'm unable to sleep. So my whole sleep cycle has been disturbed. I'm unable to see psychiatry help. So in that case, what should be done? And even from, people, healthcare people, when I try to connect, I don't get that kind of support what the panelists are talking about. The emotional connect is lacking a lot there as well. So I'm not sure, how to deal with this.
Well, thank you for calling, Shikha, and thank you for sharing. Let me just go across to our experts to see what can be done. Dr. Bhatt, would you want to take that up?
Yeah, so I'm based in Bangalore, and I can tell you that online consultations, to go to the previous caller also mentioned, there was actually guidelines from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It came out, after the COVID pandemic, where it was clearly stated that teleconsultations are fine. They added a few more medicines, and I know Dr. Shetty has also worked hard on this, on getting this and so we can now prescribe and as psychiatrists treat people online through video consultations. So I would recommend to you to actually consult with a psychiatrist online. There are psychiatrists. I understand that it may be more expensive than the hospital you're used to, but perhaps it could be a one-time consult where you get the medicines right. I would also recommend, though, that in addition to medicines, you also do get some counseling and therapy. We often have this dichotomous kind of idea in psychiatry where you're saying either therapy or medicine, but the actual fact and data tells us that you often need both. And so you're taking medicine, meet with a psychiatrist at least once soon to review that, and do connect with a therapist a counselor to talk through some of the things that you said. For example, I think you're an empathic person, so you feel, obviously that you are doing all right compared to many people who are suffering. And sometimes we can sort of transform that into gratitude for what we have, and then take the time to get better. Then we can contribute back to society, and so we can, feel that we will actually make a contribution that way. So that is really important. And in addition, I would really recommend that you also do the other things that we've been talking about: yoga, meditation, exercise, because that also has an additive effect on mental health. So please don't hesitate. There are online consultations. It is legal at this time for psychiatrists to treat and prescribe online, and also integrate that with therapy, and that will help you a great deal.
I hope that helps, Shikha. Thank you so much for that. Ruma is on the phone line from Kolkata. Good evening, Ruma. What would you like to share? That line may have been dropped. Do we have Ruma? Okay, we seem to have lost that line. Dr. Shetty, I just want to pick up on one thing, another thing that, our previous caller, Shikha, was saying, that it's becoming more and more difficult for her to also emotionally open up and share even with those that, she's close to and living with right now. And that's a big challenge in the absence of possible help. If you're not able to also, open up to people around you, your loved ones, how is there any way you can resolve that or work on it?
I think Sham has answered that, but I'll still go on and add. She said something very important, that she's not sleeping till 5 o'clock. She should get back to her own psychiatrist who knows her history if she can. And if she cannot, there would be so many psychiatrists who are working. We're all working largely pro bono as of now. And I think she should go back and put her faith in somebody and see to it that meditation and medications both together will help. At the same time, it's not that she's alone. Just ask her to pick up some friends. See what happens is shame also stops you from taking help from friends. What is very important is pick up some friends whom you have been very close to. If you have a safety net where you can go and share that I have depression, can you also help me, give me company, speak to me, be good to me, be kind to me. And so she needs to break that element of shame and get back to people whom she can trust, because you need to have a network of friends apart from counselors and psychiatrists for you to be supported and you come out of this depression. At the same time, the country has a helpline, mental health helpline, and a lot of altruistic efforts are on by counselors and psychiatrists across the country. But one caution: in a disaster like this, there is a big altruistic activity which does not last. I want the government of India to include mental health professionals in the task forces. I want the state governments to include mental health professionals in the task forces, because once you save lives and you forget after giving them dose, the mental health epidemic is going to be very big, and that will last much longer. So if you have to cure the people, it's not about saving lives, it's about helping their minds, which means the state should provide mental health relief and intervention across 1 year. And those philanthropists who are giving money, 500 crores, 300 crores, should tell that half of it, or 25% of it, should be spent on mental health. And that awareness in India has not happened, though government has appointed psychiatrists, especially in Maharashtra. They've appointed psychiatrists, but this effort will not last. It will all die. Indian altruists go to the area of disaster very fast, but they scoot from that place also very early, because mental health awareness is not there.
Okay, very quickly, let me see if I can go across to Ruma if she's back on the phone line. Go ahead, please.
I think it's only normal for people to have anxiety and fear and worry in these times, particularly people who are sensitive to what's happening around the world. The fear is all over the world. But what I notice with some kind of, I don't know how to say, that it's very strange that people that I try to talk to seem to all pretend that nothing is wrong, everything is fine with them, and there's no reason for fear or anxiety on anyone's part. Is this normal? Which is normal? To have fear or to pretend that there is no fear?
Okay, a very interesting point. Acknowledging that there is something wrong is also a crucial aspect that many of us don't follow. Dr. Anita, would you want to respond to what she's asking?
Yes, she's right when she says that, there is fear and people are, trying to move away from that. But what we have to understand is we have to acknowledge our anxieties. We have to acknowledge our fears. But at the same time, we have to try and live a normal life. And therefore, it is important that we continue living a routine, reaching out to our friends, and enjoying ourselves in spite of what is happening around us, because we need to come out strong and we need to know that we have to survive this. We have to stay positive and hope is always there. That is what I would tell her.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to thank all of our experts. Thank you for taking the time out and speaking to us and, taking up some of our viewers' questions as well. This is as much as we can do, but there's a lot more that individually people can do right now, and our experts have pointed out there is professional help available that you can seek. You can turn towards your loved ones, those who are with you, and also look at various other options, including meditation, that might help you. For each person, the solution may be different, but I think it all begins from acknowledging that this lockdown, and now an extended lockdown, the stress of it, the stress of being confined, the anxiety of what it's going to do to your future, to your profession, to your job, how it's impacting your relationships, all of that is real. And there is no harm in accepting the fact that it could be affecting you. That's the beginning. The minute we start acknowledging it, that's when we can start looking for solutions, looking for help and support to actually tide through this difficult period. Thank you so much for joining us.